What are you talking about? You say it's funny how we justify colonialism and then cry wolf when we're called out for it. I'm not crying wolf. I support colonialism. I support colonization because it's the only way that good countries have ever been made in this world. All the best countries in the world to live in have been colonized. I wouldn't want to live in any of the countries that haven't been. There's no crying wolf. There's no me taking it back. There's no me worrying about what you're going to think of me when I say that. I support colonialism. I support colonization. I live in a country that was literally founded by colonization. I support it 100%. So I don't know who these people are that you're talking to that cry wolf or take it back. That's not me. I support it. Like, is that clear enough for you? Is that showing you that I'm not taking it back? Is that showing you that I'm not crying wolf? Like, I know people love to try to hide what they think so that they can be okay on the internet. I don't care. I have my opinions, and if you don't like them, you can block me. You can skip over my video. Or you can keep commenting like this and boosting my video. But just know that I will never apologize for supporting colonization or colonialism. It's how all the best countries are made.
Do you know how narrow-minded one has to be for them to believe that the only way that was possible for great nations to be built was for people to get colonized, for people to have strangers invade their homes, unalive them in the millions, arrow them in their own homes, subjugate them in their own homes, have their land stolen away from them. For great nations to be built, atrocities have to happen in astronomical numbers. Someone this grown to believe that for great nations to be built, the most sickening of crimes against humanity had to happen. And that was the only way these great nations could have been built. That there is no other way they could have done it.
I support colonialism. I support colonization.
Of course he's in support of colonization, because it's not his people that it happened to. Because he still gets the benefits from colonization today, 2023. Of course he's in full support of it and he loves the idea of colonization. But ask this man now, if he would want to be colonized, if he would want for his people to go through what the rest of the world went through at their hands, then he would not love the idea very much. Then he would start thinking of, no, there are other ways we can get to this end goal. There are other ways to go about this. We can't be thinking about doing this. We can't be talking about that's inhumane. When you turn the table around, he would have better ideas of how we can progressively move forward as a society.
You realize how ridiculous that statement is, right? How does it feel to sell out to colonization? First of all, the nation I live in was founded by colonization. And it's a pretty awesome country. It's probably the country you live in too. And that just shows how awesome colonization was. You live in a country that only exists because of colonization, and then you live in that nation while bitching about colonization. Meanwhile, you'd have a very hard time moving anywhere that wasn't colonized, because in total, that would be 4 nations in the world.
This man aware that the majority of nations that were colonized are still in pretty bad shape right now? Or does he think that because all these nations were colonized, now they are great? There are nations across the globe who were colonized that are still in pretty bad situations right now. No thanks to colonization. These places were left in worse positions than they were before colonization. Look at Congo. But no, of course, let's not focus on those ones, right? And also, let us deliberately ignore the fact that before colonization, there were great nations, kingdoms, and empires in existence globally. And let us credit the colonizers because they were the ones who came up with the idea of creating great nations. Before them, great nations never existed. This whole video plays into this idea of, before the British, the white man decided to go about colonizing the globe, people globally did not have their own thing going. People globally did not have nice, systems and nations going. They had empires, for crying out loud. They were empires. There were kingdoms globally in Africa, in Asia. These people have been trading amongst themselves, doing business amongst themselves. They were building things for themselves. They were doing great. If we want to even be accurate with this argument, colonization stunted our developmental process. We would have been far more greater people globally if colonization did not happen. All colonization did was pave way for one particular group of people. That's all it did. They could not do on their own. They saw other people doing, they could not fairly compete, so they decided to tear these people down, steal their ish, and use their ish to build for themselves only. He's acting like they went about colonizing the globe because they wanted to do everybody a favor. No, they didn't go around colonizing people because they wanted to create this, nice, sophisticated modern world for everybody. No, they wanted to do it for themselves only. That was why they went out and did this. So they better stop acting like colonization was for the benefit of everybody. It wasn't. Colonization was the benefit of them folks. That's why it started, and that's why neo-colonialism is still being upheld till this day for them. It wasn't for everybody. It wasn't for the good of everybody. If it were for the good of everybody, if they had us in mind, if it was for the good of the entire globe, of the entire human race, it would not have happened the way it happened.
And those nations being Korea, a peninsula where half of it is ruled by a little weirdo. Japan, a nation where Yao Ming only existed because we dropped a nuke on his ancestors. Thailand, where there's equal populations man, woman, and ladyboy, who can all be slept with for $5 American. And Liberia, which I guarantee you couldn't point out on a map. In case you were wondering, it's in Africa. Y'all need to stop saying colonization like it's a bad thing. Every nation that is worth living in has been heavily colonized. All the nations that haven't been colonized generally aren't great. And if they are great, they only are great because America, the colonization capital, has spent billions of dollars to defend them. Just ask South Korea. Without the American colonial imperialist military. Japan, which is successful now only because we felt bad and we built them back up. And Thailand, where the money from creepy old American dudes probably represent half their economy. And then, of course, there's Liberia, which, again, you wouldn't even know where it was on a map. So I didn't have to sell out the colonization. I am a firm supporter of it. Because if your place was worth a damn to begin with, we wouldn't have had to colonize it.
No, it's the other way around. If them colonizers from Europe, if where they were coming from was watered down to begin with, they wouldn't have needed to colonize other groups of people. They colonized because they were lacking. They didn't have what other groups of people had, and they wanted it. But because they couldn't trade fairly, because they could not compete, because they don't compare, they decided to cook up a way to subjugate these people, take their ish, and use it to build themselves. That's why colonization happened.
And like I've said a good number of times, a good look at their museums tells you all you need to know about who was doing well historically and who wasn't doing well historically. Because you step into or you look at the British Museum, for example, and there is absolutely nothing British about it. If they were that great, why is their museum filled with other people's ish and not theirs? Nowhere summarizes world history like the British Museum does, or like the Vatican Museum does. But of course, no, let them tell it. And they will tell you how they were the ones who were watered down. Not the people who they took all of this ish from. No, it's them who had nothing to even place in their museums. They are the ones who are what's the damn, or who were what's the damn. With the way he worded that line, saying if these places weren't watered down to begin with, then they would not have needed to colonize them. If you did not know any better, you would think that the colonizers were actually givers and not the sick, twisted, murderous thieves that they were. And the fact that he doesn't even realize just how he contradicted himself in that statement. Because if these places were not worth a damn to begin with, why did they try so hard, fight so hard just to take these places over? Why did they risk being lost at sea, being dead at sea, risk traveling across treacherous waters? Why did they spend months at sea just to go to these places and take these places over if these places were not worth a damn to begin with? That don't make no sense. Who does that? Put all of this effort, risk their lives even for something that is worthless.
Nobody is surprised here, but he has to uphold the legacy of his ancestors. This is why when people say, nobody alive today was a colonizer, they should stop calling them folks colonizers, or they're even trying to make it sound like it's a slur now to say that. Then you meet people like this. who are telling you that, they support colonization. They see nothing wrong with it. Give this person a chance with the way he's speaking. He would repeat that history. Go on and do what their ancestors did and even put money on top. Do more even. There is no way you are a good person. And then you come out and say, I support all of that wickedness that happened in the past. I beg again, these people matter.
This comment says to imagine all the things we could have invented if the genocide, slavery, colonization that took place on the continent didn't happen, right? To think Africans would have been stagnant is racist. I agree with this comment 100%. And to piggyback on your comment, I want to add that it is very unfortunate, very sad that as a people, we would never know what modernization in the African sense, in the African perspective, would have looked like today. What would our ancestors have come up with? What would they have developed? What would Africa be looking like right now if Africa was not rudely interrupted with colonization, slavery, and all of the genocides that happened? Because when you look at the works of ancient Africans and how these works are highly spoken of, like the Wall of Benin, for example, the walls of Benin and surrounding areas were described as the world's largest earthwork carried out prior to the mechanical era by Guinness Book of Records. And according to estimates by the new scientist Fred Pierce, Benin city walls were at 1.4 times longer than the Great Wall of China. And this wall was destroyed in 1897 by the British. Then we have the ruins of ancient Ghana. We also have Great Zimbabwe, and all we have left to look at are her ruins. Then there is Mali, Patapata. At least we still have these buildings. Those demons did not destroy this one. Then there is Sudan and what they were doing over there. At least we still have some of this stuff standing to look at today. We could also see how intelligent, skillful, and how talented they were in their art. The Ghanaians were constantly dripping it up. Everything they were making in gold. They were rubbing that gold in everybody's faces. They were putting gold on everything, man. Everything needed a touch of gold. A touch, hell. Everything needs to be gold dripped. Across the continent, Asian Africans were doing marvelously for their time. And that is what, as a matter of fact, attracted the Europeans to the continent, because of how exceptionally well they were doing. When you look at the things that ancient Africans did, they were very progressive. These people, through their works, you can see they knew mathematics, they had, great architectural skill, they had sight for good things, and they could envision good things and bring them to reality. It's very interesting how they say Asian Africans were not doing anything, but when you go to the British Museum, there is absolutely nothing British about it. Since they were doing so much, why is that ish not in their museum? And this isn't about living in the glory of the past, right? Because that's not something that I do. I am very big on we can, do ish again today. Not only is it racist when they say Africa would have been stagnant, it's also not accurate because our ancestors were doing ish, were busy before they came. Our ancestors were left alone, just like they couldn't compete in the past, they still would have not been able to compete today.
I find it crazy how white people think they brought civilization here instead of interrupting it. Like, you genuinely think Africa, with all its resources, culture, philosophy, medicine, and education, needed you? You interrupted our civilization. You didn't give us one. In fact, every place you colonized, you held us back. In fact, if you think we're doing so badly, leave and watch us progress without you. You didn't bring any culture. You didn't bring any resources. You didn't bring any technology. All you brought was capitalism and homophobia and racism and then imperialism by taking more land. The technological advances, the art, the natural resources. How is it that the countries that are so-called advanced are the same countries that did all the colonizing? You think that's a coincidence?